Welcome to our shir, Parshas Yisro, Tafshin Pei Aleph. I'd like to make today's shir Zechin Mishmas, Rabbi Dr. Avram Yeshua Heschel Twersky, who was sadly nifted this week at the age of 90 years old. And I have a personal shaykhus. I knew him growing up as a child in Milwaukee. He was the assistant Rav of the Shul to the Rebbe until I left when I was about 10 years old, but I remember him well. And I remembered he was a tremendous person of extraordinary talent. I mean, we all know him, I think, and the whole Yiddish Welt knows him from all the books that he wrote and all the svarim that he wrote. I think it's over 60 svarim and books. He was a prolific author, but the emphasis was prolific in everything else that he did. He was just a prolific person, like everything he did well, and he made a tremendous hashpah on people. I just would mention one little story that happened with me and him. I called him up to ask him a specific shaila. And it was about the question that in the Rebbe's house where I grew up in Milwaukee. So his father, the Alter Rebbe, known as the Milwaukee Rebbe, the Hornsteipler Rebbe, they had a minig, and we've talked about it, that in the kitchen, when you went out the door, there were 3 pushkas nailed to each side of the lintel. And I thought it was a beautiful minig, but I never saw it anywhere else, and I wanted to know, like, what was the makor? So I called up Dr. Twersky. At first I called his brother, and he sent me to him. And I asked him what was the makor, and he gave me, he started talking to me, and we smoothed for a few minutes. And then he mentioned, just almost casually, I'm moving to Eretz Yisrael in 3 hours. And I said, I never would have bothered you. I'm sorry. And it was like a normal thing. A Yid calls up, he has a question, he needs an answer, so you help him out. The fact he's moving to Eretz Yisrael, not that he was going to Eretz Yisrael in 3 hours, he was moving to Eretz Yisrael in 3 hours. But that's the type of person he was, that made really time for everybody and time for everything. And it was an amazing thing. And also, we'd like to make the share also L'Zeicha Nishmas, the great Gedolim, Rav Shiner, Rabbi Yitzchak Shiner, and Rabbi David Soloveitchik, Gedoili Yisrael, Nebuch, the world misses so much. Rav Shiner specifically electrified the Siyum Shas in 2012, the previous Siyum Shas, and spoke at the Aguda convention and made his tremendous Adinas HaNefesh was just unbelievable. That he was, everybody loved him. He was just something special. And of course, David Soloveitchik, the youngest son of the Brisker Rav, with tens of thousands of Talmidim around the world. So, sadly, it was a sad week for Petir of Gedolei Yisrael, and we remember them, and we hope that our words of Torah will be in some small measure schus for the neshama. So this week we come to Matan Torah, and the Klal Yisrael's mamash are vibrating with excitement, and they're getting ready for the great day. And the pasuk says right before we come to the Aseret HaDibros, so the pasuk tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu says v'yishatzu, and the Yidden were there mitachta sahor. They went betachti sahor. They stayed at the foot of the mountain. And that's where Moshe bring them. And the pasuk goes out of its way to say they were at the foot of the mountain. Why does it have to say that? It could just say, and they were by the mountain. They were next to the mountain. Why does it have to say that? They got ready for Matan Torah. So there's an incredibly famous, and we all know it so much, I guess, from Shavuos also. It's part of almost every single shir on Shavuos. And the Gemara tells us, the Gemara in Shabbos tells in Peiches, Omer Rav Avdimi bar Chama bar Chasa. Rav Avdimi bar Chama Chasa says that Malame Shekafa HaKadosh Baruch Hu Aleim as a har kigigas. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu put on them the mountain like a barrel. And he said to them, if you're Mekabel Torah, good. V'im lav sham take v'raschem. And if not, there you will be buried. Pretty strong words. In other words, to tell you that in Torah there's only 2 options. There's life and death. As the pasuk says, bracha uklala, esachayim v'esamavis. There's like no in between here. If you accept the Torah and you keep the Torah, you have chayim. If you don't, you have mavis. And that's what he said. That Sham Teik V'Raschem, I'm giving you a Torah That's life. As the famous mice went, that there was an asifa, and somebody said at the asifa of Rabbanim, he got up and he said, the Torah is like air. I think it's for Becker that said, with the asifa, and said, pounded on the table, chas v'shalom. Torah is not air, Torah is life. It's life itself. It's not something that helps us live. Either you have Torah or you don't live. So the Torah, so that's what Rabbi Dimi Bar Chama Bar Chasa was telling us. B'lamed shekaf aleim har kegigas varma lehem imat mekabel Torah mut. That's good. Then you have Chaim. Bim lav sham take v'rasim. You're dead. So the Mefarshim all asked the kasha. One of the famous kashas, it says it should say po take v'rasim. They were at Mount Torah. They were Tachta Sahar. So why say sham take v'rasim? So Chaim Shmulevitz, Rabbi says he says in the famous Shmuz, he says that this thing known as the Sham syndrome. He probably didn't use that word syndrome, but there's a Sham, the Kud of Sham, that what does Sham mean? I'm here. I can do it now, or I can say, it's not perfect circumstances over here. Let me go over there. We're mentioning the Milwaukee Rebbe. I remember he once told me that some people think that that the Beis Medrash that they're learning in isn't so good. They'll go somewhere else, and they go to the other place. He says it's internal. If the person has Torah in them internally, they'll find everywhere they are. They'll be able to learn it. But saying Sham doesn't always help. Although there is an Indian, of course, that a person has to learn b'makom sheli b'chafetz, even Allah azay, that he can go to a different place. But if factors are being equal, he has to be careful to know, is it because of the makom that's the problem? Or is it me that's the problem? So Zakr B'chaim, Sham take v'rasa, that a person has to look in his neshama, and he has to say to himself, am I really better going there? Paite, this is where I am. I have to do things and I have to not delay. I have to not look for excuses. I have to not to say. And that's what he says. Sham take v'rasim. If you live a life of Sham, I'll get to it. I'll need better circumstances. That's not going to work. It has to be something that you can do where you are, and you have to do it now, and you do it here, and not look for reasons. So he brings a story from a Shach. Shach told a Rebbe Shemaisa, that there was once a Rebbe that told his Hasidim, today's a big day, anything you ask the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to answer you. And I'll tell you what the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to say. Okay. So one of the Hasidim come and say, Rebbe, I did what you said, I davened the Rebbeinu Shalom. So the Talmud said, the Chassid said, so tell me what did the Rebbe say? So he said, before I tell you what the Rebbe said, I want to tell you what you said. He says, okay. Oh, how do you know that? Are you looking into my head? He said, no, I'm going to tell you what you said. You said, Rebbeinu Shalom, I don't make enough money. I have kids to marry off. I have parnasa to make. I have problems at work. I have problems here. I have problems there. I make you a deal, Rebbeinu Shalom. You get my kids married off. You give me $100,000 in my bank account and $10,000 a month, and everything will be beautiful and perfect. I guarantee you, after davening, I'm going to sit down and learn all day. So the Chassid says, yeah, how'd you know? That's what I was davening. I was davening to Hashem. Take care of all my problems, and you got me, I'm yours. So he says, what did the Rebbeinu Shalom say to that? So he says, I'll tell you what the Rebbeinu Shalom said. The Rebbeinu Shalom said to him, no way. He said, don't do me any tovas. He said, what does that mean? The Rebbeinu Shalom said that. He says, Zok the Rabbi Yisoid. The Rebbeinu Shalom does not want us to be a malach. The Rebbeinu Shalom does not want us to be perfect. If he wanted, he could make malachim. If he wanted people who had no problems, they just do the ruts and Hashem without anything. I got malachim galore. He says, but I want people, because I want them to be challenged, and I want them to grow, and I want them to fight, and I want them to struggle and come to greatness in a way that only a human being can. That's what I want. So your dream, the Rebbeinu will take care of everything, I'll take care of you, that's not the way it works in this world. The way it works in this world is that your struggle is what's precious to Rebbeinu Shalom. That you went to shul and you learned at night and fell asleep because you were so exhausted. I remember when I was in the Becker in Chicago tells, so a Yid, and this Yid, an older man, a nice person, a working man, and used to come every single night to yeshiva and go over to the Becher and ask them to learn with them. And everybody, of course, said, sure, of course, why not? So he'd sit next to them, and the minute they would start learning, he'd fall asleep. He was exhausted that whole day. And they finished learning, and he'd get up and say, thank you so much, I so appreciate you learning with me. And he was happy. And I'm sure the Rabbi Shem Mamish loved it. That this man, he just wanted to be in the basement, he just wanted to learn. Never he was tired. And this you can't. But that's what the Rabbi Shem wants from us. The Rabbi Shem wants from us to struggle. He wants to say, you went out to learn, you went out to do a mitzvah, you helped somebody, you invited somebody, you did a chesed for somebody. It wasn't easy. It was hard. It was easy, no. Okay, important, do it. But it's not so easy. Stretch. And that's what Rabbi Shem wants. So it says in the Mishnah in Ovis, the famous Mishnah in Perek Beis, Mishnah Daled, it says that Rabbi Kiva said, a person says, that a person shouldn't say, when I have time I will learn, maybe he won't have time. So he says a different shot. He says, when I'll have no more tirdas, we'll have no more problems, Eshna. That's when I'll learn. When I'll be free from all of my problems, all my tzaras, I'm going to learn Rimban Shalom. Nah, Hashem aloti pana. It's not going to happen that you're going to get all of your tirdas taken away. And the Chedush Arim says, V'afta l'racha, it says in the pasuk that you should worship Hashem b'chol levavecha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol modecha. And what does it say? B'chol nafshecha, suck the pasuk, suck the chazal, afilu noitos nafshecha. You have to serve Hashem even if they kill you. It says b'chol mo'adecha, you have to serve Hashem with all your money. Even if they're going to take your money, you have to serve Hashem. So zok the Mosik Mior that the Chazal don't say b'chol levavecha. It says this is the pshat b'chol levavecha. B'chol levavecha afilu noitos levavecha. Even if he takes your lave, even if it takes your cheshik, your ability, because you're tired and you don't have cheshik and you don't feel like it, and whatever your excuse is, serve Hashem anyway. Even if it's not there, even if you're not feeling like it today, you don't feel like going to davening, schlep yourself. You don't feel like going to shir, schlep yourself. You don't feel like doing chesed, schlep yourself. You have to always have that in mind. We said a story here, unverified story, heard it in the shir, but so we'll say the story, but I can't vouch for its the story. So the Rebbe went with his Hasidim, and they went to it was a cold winter day like it is now, in the middle of winter, it's icy, it's frozen. And the Rebbe says, let's get into the vugan, into the wagon, we're going to go find something interesting to look at. And they come to a frozen lake, and there's hundreds of people skating back and forth on the lake. And now the Rebbe looks at it keenly, and he says, okay, time to go home. They go home, and all the Chassidim say, Rebbe, what was that all about? So he says, you should know that day that we went was Yom Edom, the day that they have a holiday, in the middle of the winter, December holiday. And they were going and they were taking crosses. They were making salems back and forth in the ice, back and forth. That's what they were doing. It says, and I wanted to look and to see that the lake was frozen, to show that there are times when the Yetzer Hara's heat is eish, is fire, and a person is running to do an Aveira. He says, compulsive Aveira. But there's other times when the Yetzer Hara is Yetzer Hara of ice, of coldness, of kriros, of not feeling anything, not feeling a warmth in Yiddishkeit, not feeling a warmth in mitzvahs, not feeling warmth of Abbas Hashem, not feeling warmth of Abbas Torah. That emptiness, that's the insight that we have in our generation. And that's the insight that we have to fight. And that's something that the Torah was saying, that the Torah is going to give you life. And Sham take for Aslam. Here's where the life is. If you're here, you're going to be okay. You go Sham, outside of Torah, then it's going to be the Kfura. It's a little bit different shot than we said before, but a little bit different. Here, we don't say Po take Raslam, because Po, you've got the Torah, you're going to be good. Sham, you leave the Torah, you go over there, it's not going to be so good. So we talked before about Dr. Twersky, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha. So one of the great things he did in his life is he was Makar many people to Yiddishkeit. And one of those people that he was Makar was a Yid from Milwaukee that he became world famous. He's not alive. His name was Meir Schuster. Meir Schuster was a Yid who spent his life by the Kaisel and used to go over to people and say, would you like to go to a yeshiva? Would you like some Jewish warmth? Would you like to go to a meal in a Jewish home? And he was Makar of thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people. All of that is to the credit of Dr. Twersky. So I had a story, my own story with Meir Schuster. I was at the Kaisel. I hadn't seen him in many, many years. He was a very, very tall, thin person. You couldn't miss him. And I went, there's other lessons to learn from him. But I went over to him and I said, Meir, I've seen you in so long. And he gives me a hello, and he says, I apologize, I'm at work, I have neshamas to save. He was a person who didn't have a sham. He had to do it now. Now's the time to do. What a powerful lesson that was for me. When you're in the middle of a mitzvah, do the mitzvah. Don't wait. Don't push it off. Who knows? He felt if spend 15 minutes with me, he might lose an neshama for nitzchias. And I so appreciated it. Because he understood that lesson, that every sham is a serious, serious issue. And it's a lost opportunity. We spoke a couple of weeks ago, and we spoke about the difference of the famous grove din v'cheshbon. There's a din that you get a din from doing something, an aveira, a person gets a din, but the cheshbon is, in the time he was doing the aveira, he could have been doing the mitzvah. So that's true not only of aveiras and mitzvahs, that's true of time. That we have time that we bring, and we just, as the Nebuch term is used, to kill time. You're just doing nothing. That's also an opportunity cost. There's also an opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is that we could have been doing something. So this lesson is so powerful that HaKadosh Baruch Hu taught us. Tachti sahar, sham take rasam. You're going to wait till sham. You might as well go to the kever right now. What are you waiting for? Go right now, because there's no purpose if you're going to wait till sham. Sham. You wait till the sham all the time. This year you wait till sham. Next you wait till sham. You're always waiting till sham. Take Kfara. That'll be Kfura. And therefore the way you have to do it is right now. Seize the moment, as Rabbi Fran famously said at the Siyum Hashat. Seize the moment. Cherish the moment. Now's the moment. Now's the time to do. Now's the time to learn that Torah. Now's the time to do that chesed. Now's the time to say that shir. Now's to just bring the time. Sham take for us. Pai. Here is life. We should all be zoicha to life. Liberty and happiness too, of course. But we should be zoicha to a long life and a life of accomplishment, just as these Gedolei Yisrael were always zoicha to arichas yomim, and they did unbelievable things, and every day was special, and every day wasn't wasted. Every day was teaching Torah, every day was spreading Torah, every day was accomplishment, every day was counseling people, every day was helping people. Every single minute of every single day was used to the maximum. There was no sham by these people. There was only pai. There was no shamati pana. Perhaps we'll go l'shefna. No such thing. No matter what, even when I feel night was not shechan. No such thing. These were people who dedicated their entire lives to helping, to making every second work, and that's the lesson. The minute Hashem, when He gave that Torah, He gave us every single second can be used for something, and the word sham became a treifa word. So as Reb Chaim said, we should never fall into the sham syndrome, We should always be in the poi of accomplishment. Have a good Shabbos.